All right, Michelle, thanks for coming on the podcast. I know I've seen you on a lot of podcasts, listened to you, and I was like, I got to get her on my podcast because she's a guru in the small business space.
Thank you. I'm excited
So,
to be on.
and we connected through LinkedIn, right? I think through Sean Boyle,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah. Sean Boyle's podcast. Yep.
very, very good. All right, so maybe we can go back and you can tell me, like, where you're from, what your background is. I know you're in the Midwest, right?
Right.
And how you became this influencer, thought leader in the small business space, especially for women, right? But not just women.
Right. Not just women at all. But yes, definitely for women. So yeah, I actually started in politics all the way back when I was 15.
Okay, that's
And
an interesting
so
story.
yeah, interesting path. But so I started out that way and basically was working in political campaigns across the country. It went on to, just over the years as I, grew up, eventually was staffing and managing political campaigns. And so what I really learned from political campaigns that applies now to small businesses is, for a political campaign, you literally have to take a business or take a candidate and help them with their name recognition, get them completely off the ground
Right.
and in 3 months, and you only have one day to make all of your sales, which is
And it's
election
all
day.
PR and marketing, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
so I realized from that I could take everything I knew about making a candidate successful and known in 3 months and take that and apply it to small businesses, of course, on a more drawn out scale than 3 months, because that's
Right.
exhausting
That's a little right.
already.
It's a little daunting to most people. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so I just took that. I was also in media for a long time, so I was a political commentator in addition to other things, um, and so I took all of that and applied it to Boxxbury and to helping small businesses. But the other component too is when I was 20 years old, I was living in Lexington, Kentucky. I grew up in Kansas City. I'm
Okay.
back in Kansas City now. But
Okay.
I was living in Lexington, Kentucky, and
Kansas City, Missouri, right? We talked about this.
yes,
Right.
yes,
There's Kansas City,
Missouri.
Kansas too, is a different town.
Right. And I
Right.
really appreciate you clarifying. It's
No
Missouri.
offense to those people in Kansas, right?
Right, right. um, no, it's a playful rivalry. So yeah, so Lexington, I got my real estate license, and I was 20 and I didn't really know anyone in the area, and I had to yet again use my political experience and really build a whole network from the ground up. And
Okay.
so went on to triple my business in year two, and spoke at the National Association of Realtors conference. And so everything has just all combined together with all these different avenues that's been made me really, really effective in helping small businesses.
And that was all networking and building relationships, right?
It's networking, building relationships, social media. I now have, I think, over 16,000 followers on Instagram, and growing. And then, LinkedIn is pretty large as well. And so is Facebook. So,
So what happened? I mean, you don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to influence businesses and stuff, right? It's
right.
got to start somewhere. So how did it kind of develop into where it is now?
So I had done real estate full time for 5 years. And at the same
Right.
time, I was
Residential, selling homes or buying
right,
homes.
residential, correct. And on top of that, I was managing political campaigns too. Still, I really like to work a
You're
lot.
doing both
And
local politics in Lexington.
yeah, local politics in Lexington, but I also did some congressional and national races as well.
Okay.
So yeah, so I just basically at some point hit my wall with real estate. It's the same thing over and over, and I knew I needed a new challenge. I loved it, but I felt like I had kind of played it out for me. So I started thinking about, okay, well, what skill sets do I have? What could I go ahead and transition into?
Yeah.
And I thought about continuing to do politics, and I could and still do consult on some things. But ultimately, I just had this massive passion starting to develop for these small businesses because the majority of small businesses do fail. And so,
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah, it has become such a passion for me to try to alleviate that, especially right now during COVID, but in
Right.
general, as much as possible. So,
So do you remember the first business like you came across, you met, you're like, this is what I got to do. Like these people need my help. Had
yeah, I remember the exact night I started the company.
Okay, good.
So
Good question. Yeah.
yeah, it was a Wednesday. It was an evening, and I was thinking. I was just looking at some small businesses Instagrams in the area, and I was still in Lexington at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they're missing out. They're missing out on sales. They're missing out on so many things that could really be helping them. And so I drafted this little message, and I just remember it saying like, hey, I'm just noticing, this could be
To this particular person. It wasn't a
to this particular business, but I
okay.
actually I ended up sending it to 9 other businesses as well.
Okay.
That night, it was the same message. It was just Instagram direct messages. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a company name. I didn't have
Right.
anything. Just
You
reached out, and I was like, hey, I could really help with this, and I would really love to. And for me at that point, it was almost like I would almost do it for free just because I wanted to help so badly, and I knew that they needed the revenue. So
right.
I reached out, didn't think I would get any responses, went to dinner that night and on a Wednesday, and within about an hour, I already had 3 responses, and then within a week, we were generating revenue. So
Wow. So basically you were seeing what they weren't doing online,
yeah,
digital marketing and stuff, right?
and just being really specific, yes, and saying like, hey, like this is what you're missing. This could all lead to sales and revenue. That's why it's important. Let me help you.
And it resonated with them.
Yeah, I really did.
And you didn't even like say, and this is what it's going to cost. You didn't say that, right?
No,
No.
didn't talk about price. It didn't
Right.
matter. I didn't even know what I was going to charge.
Yeah, you
I
probably had
had
no idea, but it didn't matter if it's the right
yeah,
thing for them. If it's the right message,
right.
price is always a, well, we'll figure that part out type of a thing,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all
I
the
think that's
marketing.
one of the hardest parts with, all of the branding and the stuff that I read and learn and interview people. It's like getting your message correct, like to reach the people that you're trying to reach. And some people, you being one of them, have a knack for like seeing what your blind spots are, because as a business owner, a lot of times you can't, I mean, you do it, right? You go on these events and people give their little elevator speech and you're like, I really have no idea what that person does. And if you know them, you might know. I had the conversation with this 2 weeks ago with my law firm over my website with
Yeah.
somebody. And I said, answer, give me an honest answer. Like if you looked at my website, you didn't know me, would you know like what kind of law I practice? And they were like, kind of. Like I didn't like that answer, so we've been
Right.
reworking things, but you kind of, yeah, I mean, you kind of need somebody to have who can kind of see through the
Right.
forest, the forest for the trees and so forth.
Exactly. That's a great point. It's about that big picture aspect, like you're referring to. Like, okay, how do we narrow this down to the teeniest, like the most simple way possible for people to understand? And then how do we say it over and over and over again? So when they need that, they think of us.
I think
So,
that's one of the problems, right? Is that people's messages are too complex. They're trying to
right.
say everything in
And they put a
their
lot of
30-second
jargon.
elevator. Yeah, a lot, definitely jargon. And I didn't realize it either. I mean, I do it. I try to avoid it, but you do it. I mean, it's just because you work in your business and you're like,
Right.
well, that's a this, and this. People are like, what is that? I have no idea because they don't work in your business.
Correct. I think that's the biggest mistake I see a lot of businesses doing on social media is
Yeah.
they actually find themselves marketing more towards their competitors than they do
Yeah.
towards their actual prospects because the jargon is so on point. So other people, for example, like maybe in my case, it'd be like marketing firms or business development firms or whoever, that if the jargon's really on point, they'll be like, oh, I really resonate with that. Well, they're not going to buy from
Right.
you.
They're not your
They're your
clients.
competitors.
Right. They're not going to have potential clients for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have that in real estate too, where a lot of realtors will all network together. And some of that's beneficial and some of it at a certain point is not, because again, they're not going to use you. So it's about how simple can we make this? And then more than that, how do we address the need? How do we address the pain points? How do we address the problems that someone is currently facing? That's
In a way
something
that they can understand.
right. Like, and
Yeah.
actually going in with the emotion of it too, because if you have a problem, it's emotionally frustrating to you before you'll do something about it. We like to
Right.
think they're logical, but it's emotional. And
Of
so
always. They say that it's backed by logic, right? But the emotion's got to be there first.
it has to be there first. And the
Yeah.
emotion is what prompts you to act and to move. It's the alleviation of a problem or the potential benefit of something. That's the only reasons we ever act. So how do we really say, okay, where are they at right now? What are they feeling? What are they frustrated about? What do they need? And really addressing that. And that's really basically all you really need when it comes to marketing. Because from there, it's just talking to people about what you offer. So
I think a lot of business owners, that's very difficult for them. Like it's very difficult to really understand your client's perception of you
mhm.
and your business and your industry. When you're outside the industry and you know the way to do it, you can look at it and say, well, none of us understand what you're talking about. You just talk simply,
Right, or I
don't,
just fell
you know,
asleep.
yeah. I mean, I read some stuff like as a lawyer, right, in law, I mean, forget the fact that I don't understand. Like, so some of this technical stuff, I get newsletters from law firms that are dealing in technical areas. I don't know, immigration law, environmental law, whatever, complicated. Forget the fact that I'm an attorney and I can't understand it. I mean, I don't even know why they're putting, like, I don't know what's the point.
Right.
What are you putting this out for? I mean, what, are you trying to impress your colleagues who don't do business
Right.
with you? That's
Right.
ultimately what you're doing is you're educating your colleagues who can then practice and
Against
compete
you.
with you. Right,
Right.
exactly. And I don't think they overlook that, but there's got to be, especially if they're bigger firms, accounting firms, law firms. I can't believe they're doing it on their own. They have to have somebody giving them advice on the digital marketing side and the content marketing side. What the hell are these people telling? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be so
I
critical,
mean,
but
here's the biggest thing I think too is just really, again, starting to picture in your mind, like I said, going back to like, who is your ideal client? What
very
level
overlooked, by the way. Ideal client profiles are
they are
totally
overlooked.
ignored. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're
They
everything.
want to market to everybody, but that's not anybody. It's
No, absolutely
nobody.
not.
Yeah.
No, it's
No.
nobody, and you're not going to get the amount of prospects that you could get, and it won't be as dialed in, and it won't be as easy. It gets easier if you know exactly everything about your ideal client. Um, so if you go ahead and you start to look at that and you say, okay, well, does my ideal client, like what education level are they at? I mean, are they really sitting around using these gigantically large, complicated words? I mean, there's
Right.
so many things on websites in general. I'm like, did you just like look up a thesaurus and you just like threw some words on here and you're like,
Right.
that sounds impressive. Let's go.
Right. Exactly. That's the point. You're
Not
not supposed to
helpful.
sound impressive. I mean, you could sound like you know what you're talking about, but not
Right.
like trying to impress people with all your degrees and everything.
There's a level, and we talk a lot now, of course, all over the place about authenticity and that approachability factor. If you could
Right.
be like the smartest person in the world in the room, and everyone will be like, okay, that person's really smart, but I don't want to work with them
Right.
because they're not
It's
approachable.
intimidating to you, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we come up and say, okay, look, I clearly know what I'm talking about, but I'm also here as a guide. I'm also here to help. I'm also here to alleviate those pain points, and you can confide in me, trust in me. I'm your confidant. Like we can do this. That works better. And with too many websites, you don't get that vibe at all. It's
Yeah.
very, very corporate.
Well, you got to be accessible. That's one of my things about law,
Yeah.
right? When I rebuilt my practice, I wanted to make it easy for people to deal with a lawyer, make them accessible, not intimidated. You go to your lawyer, it's a 4-month process to get a will done. It should be a
Right.
3-day process, by the way. So, it's definitely intimidating to people. And I think that that's a big problem when it comes to, putting your message out there. And it's like in high school, right? The best looking girls never had dates for the prom because everyone else was so intimidated. Well, I mean, I'm sure you must have a date. I'm not going to, probably the quarterback of
Right.
the football team's taking you. I'm not going to ask. And then you're home. Like, what the hell happened? And it's right. And it
Right.
still happens. So it's definitely a perception issue.
Yeah,
I guess people try and do it themselves too much. And that's part of the problems with failure.
it is. It is for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
So that was back in. So when did you make the transition to start working with small business owners? Remember what year
yeah,
it
so that's
was?
about a year and a half ago.
Oh, so it wasn't that long ago.
No, and we've worked with
Oh,
over 100 businesses.
very good.
Then, yeah, it's been
Mostly
really
local by you or all over the country?
all over the country and then a couple outside of the country as well. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so since you're the marketing guru, right?
Mhm,
The digital marketing person,
mhm.
what have you done? Now you told me about the first 9 emails that you sent and things, and I do the same thing. I link into people and you start a conversation with them, right? It's like
Right.
prospecting, basically.
Yeah.
Lawyers have some issues about what you can do and you can't do, but you
Right.
can
You
certainly
guys
start a
have a lot of
conversation, right? You
regulations.
don't want to be a stalker, but what did you do to grow your business and to do that in a short period of time? Because you know what you're talking about. So let's
Yeah, let's
get some
dive into it.
advice. Yeah.
I love prospecting. Okay. So,
And that, by the way, different than marketing, right?
oh, very
Prospecting is
different.
much more
So,
targeted and much more focused.
right. So, and that was one thing I really wanted to touch on and then we will dive into all of that.
Good.
What I've really started to section off in our company is showing people how we have pretty much 4 phases that we take them through. And the initial phase is like, let's talk about your pricing and that business development side. Let's talk about your offer because most small businesses do not know their cost and most small businesses do not charge enough. And
Numbers. They don't know
they
their
have
numbers.
right. And then we work through the mental blocks of charging that much because I know I've learned over the last year and a half, um, if the owner has a mental block behind how much they're asking and how much they're charging, we won't, it doesn't matter what we do on our end, they will find a way to sabotage it every
Yeah.
time. And so
Like,
we have to
well,
work with that.
I'm not so comfortable with that. I know Michelle from the
Right.
community. How can I charge her this or that? And
Right.
everyone else is charging it, but you're not. Yeah, that's a huge
Right.
issue. So, but
Yeah. And
it's that's unique to small business owners, because if you and I had a large corporation and
mhm.
we were marketing like Amazon or whatever, that wouldn't even be a part of our discussion,
Right.
because that's
Um,
what the corporation does. But when it's small business owner, you feel like you have this connection to the community and this and that. I mean, I do it too. I do favors for people, but
of
I don't like
course.
working for free. So, you got to really get, yeah.
You gotta just know your value and know your worth. But we work on all of that on that front, because I learned initially we didn't offer that. Initially, it was only going to be marketing, and then I realized we literally cannot get sales for these people if these small
No,
businesses.
that's a good,
It's-
good point. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people miss that, especially in the
right.
digital marketing side. They don't address that issue.
Right. And then so phase two after that is we move into, the branding aspect. And then phase three is the marketing, getting all of that going, marketing PR. And phase four is your lead generation and sales. So we really focus in on getting that for people. So really the whole goal of the business is to help small businesses move back to, why they started the business to begin with, because a lot of them didn't start it to actually do all the business side. They started it to do
Right
whatever
brain.
they're passionate about. Yeah.
Yeah. Very creative. That's one of the problems, right? All these people, a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm kind of the same way. We like doing all the creative stuff, right?
Right.
But if you don't do the numbers and the focus on the ideal client and the target marketing, you're not going to make it.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so the reason I brought up the whole worth aspect as well, is because it goes into lead generation. Because I mean, and we also incorporated the sales aspect now, because initially we were just generating, leads. We've generated millions of leads for our clients in the last year and a half. And most of them would not act on it. Most businesses would not, that they would only act on a small percentage of the leads that they received, or they wouldn't act on it at all because those mental blocks were there. And so
You mean, so
what
you're generating all these leads for them and they're not following up on them, or?
a lot of them are not correct. So that's why we started doing. We have a sales team, and they literally will take these leads and help convert and recreate their sales materials. It's a whole nother phase, but it's putting all that together to help small businesses actually succeed, because it's a big issue. So when we're talking about the lead gen side, and even in the pricing side, I look at them as almost hand in hand, because again, it comes down to what you believe you can get and what you can believe you can charge.
Yeah.
And so, one thing I would like to talk about too is we had one client in particular. She had no idea what her costs were. So once we helped her see all of her costs and then her growth plans as well, because of course we build those in, and we were like, you need to charge twice as much as you're currently charging. And she was
Right.
like, no one's going to buy that.
Right.
And we're like, just try, trust us. And so we went ahead and raised her prices, doubled them. And not only did she get more sales than she was getting previously, like, I mean, people just didn't even balk at the price. When as before, they would negotiate over the lower price. They would try to
Right.
negotiate her. Then they were like, oh, you're a premium brand. Okay, let's go.
Right. It
So
was
I like
almost
to
like
tell,
she was undercutting herself,
yes.
because people were like, "Oh, how good could this be if she's only charging whatever? So I shouldn't pay 1,200 for it. I should pay $1,000 for it or whatever."
Right. And you're not just undercutting yourself as a small business. And I love talking about this because, a small business is so ingrained into a community. So you're undercutting your family, you're undercutting the community
Yeah.
economy as well. So if you
Right.
can't get behind your worth, at least get behind what you are offering to everybody else by charging more and bringing more money into your economy and into your community.
Yeah.
So
That's one of the things I find fascinating from a psychological standpoint. It's like these people won't charge what they're worth or what they could, and they're not paying attention, and they're really just hurting their families.
yeah,
It's
correct.
just amazing. And then if you put it that way, then they're like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Like I never really thought about that. Like
Yeah,
this person that you don't know comes through the door, or you know them from the community, you give them a break. That's more important than putting food on your table and sending your kids to camp, or I don't know, whatever you do with your money.
right.
The priorities
Because
are kind of backwards."
we're societally conditioned to not be selfish and to many times think that money is scarce and money is bad. So if you can start to help someone understand how it affects all the other aspects of their lives, of their
Right.
families, their communities, then they're more likely to charge what they really deserve. And then eventually they start feeling into their worth and their value from there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. They
so
get more comfortable with it. They realize it's not so bad. It's nice having
right,
money, being successful, feeling like you actually get paid for what you're entitled to.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, again, from the lead generation aspect, I did this in real estate and I'm doing it with companies now. There's, a couple different ways you can approach it, but I love an organic lead generation approach. So really, if you're able to say, okay, here is a list. This is actually, oh, this is so good. And now I'm getting
Okay,
excited.
good.
Okay.
Well, I love good stuff.
Okay. So let's talk about an Instagram strategy and make it just really dialed in, something people could implement today if they wanted to.
Okay.
Okay. So an Instagram strategy, let's say at least a small picture of what kind of ideal client you're going for. All right. You're going to go find accounts that have followers like that already. So not your you can look at your direct competitors, but if they already know about your competitor, then make it
That just drives
make it
them there.
easy.
Yeah.
Right. Make it easy on yourself. So go ahead and find some other ones that think about, okay, what do people buy at the same time or around the same time as they buy from me? Find those people who are following similar accounts on Instagram.
So like
Go
complementary services and products, is that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay.
complimentary.
Okay.
So, okay, let's just say I was talking to an in-ground pool company, so it's on my mind.
Okay.
So an in-ground pool company, let's say, okay, people also buy pergolas, like they build pergolas in their backyard at the same time they're building an in-ground pool or
Right.
whatever it may be, an outdoor kitchen. You go and you find those people, find their accounts on Instagram, start following the followers that are following them.
So you got to do that by hand, right? You got to go, you can follow the
You can
business
do
and then you
that,
can
right? And
look
I'm just
and
right, and I'm offering just like something you could implement today. So this is
right.
just the way to implement it today. But yeah, you go follow them by hand, um, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna line up, let's say, 5 to 10 posts. To post on your Instagram, and if you have a visual brand, this is way easier. So then you're gonna already have things you can take photos of. But it could just be like interesting photos. Like right now, I'm looking at your background in your office. It's really nice visually. So like maybe it's a couple
It's
pictures of
fake,
like.
but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
It's
but
less visually appealing without the background.
I like it. So you go ahead and you take some photos, in your case, legal. And so you take some photos of like maybe like you, and there's some helpful information. You think, okay, if they're in that buy cycle with that other complimentary service, or they're in a buy cycle with me, what are they currently thinking about? Think of 10 questions
Okay.
that they might be asking. They will likely be asking themselves during the buy cycle. So if you can't think of those questions, look up frequently asked questions in your industry, and boom, there you go. You've got
There
some
you go.
post ideas. Yep.
What did they say? JGI? Just Google it.
Yeah, just Google it. So, or whatever browser you're using these days.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, go ahead and do that. And from there, just write the answers to those questions, put them as posts. So easy. You look like someone who's like really influential. You just followed all those people. Now you're going to post those posts one a day for the next 10 days. So those people are going to likely see it, right?
So
You're off.
Instagram works like LinkedIn. When you follow them, they'll see what your posts are?
No,
Or
only
no?
if they follow you back, but they will go to your
Okay.
profile. They
Okay.
will go to,
So
because
because
I mean,
they'll
most,
see you're following them, they're like, oh, who's this girl, Michelle?
right.
What does she do?
What is her
Okay.
profile? So they
Got it.
might not choose to follow you back, but they'll at least be looking at your profile once.
Okay.
But then here's the next thing you're going to do. Whether or not they follow you back, it doesn't matter because you have those posts. You look like a thought leader. Now you're going to go, even if they haven't seen those, you're going to go and you're going to send them a message, kind of like what I talked about that when I first launched my company. But you're going to send them a message saying, like, hey, like, I noticed that it could say something as simple as, hey, I noticed that you and I were both following such and such, name the complimentary service if you want to, and then say, it what really goes hand in hand is, kind of what I do. And then you provide a free piece of value. Like, so here's, a resource on my website. You can go to check out this, or but it needs to be a real piece of value.
Like an ebook or something like that.
Right. Like for me, like, right. It could be like an ebook. It could be something saying, okay, here's our 4 phases, or here are some questions you can ask yourself today about your business. And just to see where you're at, or if you're charging enough. And so you start to get them through that, and you start the relationship. It's value. You're not selling to them.
Right.
One, that helps you personally, because if you have a problem with prospecting, you don't feel like you're being a sleazeball by reaching out
Right.
to people on their DMs.
It's not the salesy type of things that people are like, I don't like selling.
Right.
Well,
And two, then on top of that, they realize, oh, you're really trying to help. You really care about them, which to me is really important. I like to really build that empathy connection with people.
definitely.
And so you go ahead and you let them look at that. If you have an email opt-in, so much the better on that particular resource that you hand them so you can get their email address and info. But even if you don't do it that way, you can start a conversation and a dialogue with them and then ultimately schedule a call or however your sales cycle works. So that's what I would do today if it were
So
me.
does that work for like B2B on LinkedIn, the same type of thing where you
Yep,
can
I did
follow
it.
people, the same type of thing?
Right. Yeah. So I've done it on LinkedIn. I've done it on Instagram. I've done it all over the place, but it's super, yeah, business to business, business to consumer. It works for everybody. So,
It's really just starting a conversation, right? I mean, you're
yeah,
just connecting. You're saying, "Hey, I see that you're interested in baseball, like I am. Do you know
right.
what what do you think of the new manager? Whatever."
Yeah. I would just think about,
It's intuitive.
it,
Yeah,
it's building a friendship, it's building a relationship. And that's exactly, you're building rapport. But that's just how you would do with anybody that you're
right.
becoming friends with or, whatever. It doesn't have to feel so corporate, so businessy. But especially for small businesses, doing it that way tends to result in a lot of sales. Whereas otherwise you're gonna be spending a lot of money trying to get data and other things and ads. And there's nothing wrong with ads, but if you don't have the budget to do it, it's smarter
Yeah,
just to
right.
do it
It's
the next
really
way.
shotgun approach. You're just
Yeah,
shooting from the hip.
right.
But you already know now that you have something kind of made potentially in common with them, and
Right.
right because you've kind of checked them out, and then you know
Yeah,
what
you
you're
already
going to be
know a
doing.
little bit about your prospect, you know that they're likely your ideal client, they're interested in the same things, they're probably in a decent similar buy cycle that you need them to be in, and so you're helping them out, and if they need you, great, and they decide to work with you, and if not, then you know that if nothing else, you provided them a true piece of value content that they can take with them, and they might circle back later, or if
Tell
nothing
somebody
else.
else about you or
Right, exactly. I've
whatever.
gotten a lot of referrals from people who were like, "Hey, we decided to not go with you, but we really like you. And so here's some referrals for you." So,
So now I had a couple of questions for you. First of all, when you're dealing with a lot of these small business owners and you're dealing with the branding side of it, is it more like often branding the person who's running the business, like the owner of the business, because it's a small business, or what do you find in that regard? I
we
hear
do
different
both.
things all the time. It really
Yeah.
just depends on like the business they're in.
Yeah, it really depends on the business they're in and their ultimate goals, and that's something we get really clear on. So, a lot of business owners do wanna be the face. Perfect. We'll work with that, and the face is easy for people to connect with, so I do like that. But, some people would prefer to be behind the scenes, and so then we just focus in on that kind of brand.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always say that there are ways to do things and be comfortable about them. Like you don't have to. I mean, look, it does. Does it help to get out of your comfort zone sometimes? Yes, definitely does. You find it's not so frightening or whatever, but you don't have to like be that salesperson that you don't resonate with, that you like in the used car business or things like that
Right.
that you think about where it really makes you uncomfortable. You can find ways, like you said, to build relationships with people online without feeling like you're cold calling them and hey, wait, don't hang up. It's
Yeah,
because that's like the worst nightmare of any kind of salesperson. I think I
it
was in the
is.
insurance business when I came out of law school. I did a lot of estate planning and stuff. I
Oh,
think I
yeah.
made like 10 cold calls. It was such a horrific experience. I never wanted to do it again. Supervisor, like, what did you think? I said, I think I'm never doing that. You do that to me again, I'm quitting. It's terrible, because people don't know you. They don't care about you. They just hang up. So you can't
Exactly.
expect anything different. So are
And no
there,
one wants to be sold to.
no, no, they don't want to be sold. And that's not what like sales is, right? The sales process is like trying to help people make
Mhm.
a decision that's good for them that they need to make. They just don't have enough information and they're not comfortable with the decision and
Right.
making
It
decisions
You're
better.
just giving them
Yeah.
the information and letting them do with it what they will.
Yeah. It's
All
not
of it.
conning people into buying your
No.
product. That's
Right.
that's like that's not sales. That's being a con artist. That's good.
Right.
That's criminal.
Right. Exactly. Uh, yeah, no, I think again, like you talked about, you can do things how you want to do them. There are millions of options and ways to get to where you want to get to with your goals and with your business. And it gets to be comfortable. It gets to feel good to you. And it should. So, anything that you do here's a good example. I feel like most small business owners, myself included, we'll have, a list of things where we're like, okay, we really need to theoretically build this out, or we need to theoretically do this. If you have that sitting on your list for, over 6 months, just delete it. We've all know
Right. You're never going to
none
do
of
it.
us are going to do it.
Right.
And you will clear up so much mental space because you won't be judging yourself for not getting that done. You just realize that's not the way I want to go, and that's okay. There's another way to get to where I want to get to.
Yeah. Don't make yourself feel bad that you're not doing whatever it is you really don't want to do anyway.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with
Exactly.
that. Now, do you
Yeah.
find you work in certain industries more than, like, with certain business owners that are in different industries more than others, or is it all over the board?
It has been so all over the board, because everything I've done has been a formula. It's boiled down to a formula. And so I can pretty much apply it to almost any industry. Industries like yours that are more regulated are obviously, there's a lot more tweaking involved. Like, for example, I worked with a CBD company last year, and
Uh-huh.
there's a ton of regulation right now. And so we had to be really careful. But yeah, it's been, I mean, from realtors to CBD to, like I said, in-ground pool companies, bakeries. Oh my gosh. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Like I said, it's a formula.
What
So,
about on this? Is it different? Because I'm obviously in professional services. So is it different on the services side versus having a product, so to speak?
oh, very. I mean, services and products are different. I mean, the formula is still pretty similar, but you're looking at, okay, because with a professional services side, you have a bigger margins most of the time,
Right.
and products, you have a lot more overhead, you have a lot more to pay attention to. But yeah, I mean, they're different. There's a different marketing approach because you're not informing people like I talked about through one of those frequently asked question posts. You can still inform people, but it's not the same. It's not the same thing. So there's just a little bit of extra that you've got to tweak. But
Yeah. So, like me, I'm a business lawyer for the most part. I family business planning. Like, if I'm looking for somebody on, let's say, Instagram, for example, I don't do a lot of Instagram, but
Mhm.
actually, I think all my podcasts get posted on Instagram through the service that I use.
Really,
I think
okay.
so. I'm pretty sure, but I never look at my account. So, well, maybe I should. So what, as a lawyer, what would I look for in terms of finding people that are, I guess the word you were using was like-minded, right, with me? And they're not going to be like
Mhm.
somebody reading wills. I doubt that's going to be the case.
You mean like an ideal client?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like what would
So,
resonate with someone like me, like these all these small lawyers around there.
right. Okay. So,
Stick with business law. Let's assume I'm a business
okay. Yeah, I
lawyer.
was going to ask. Okay. So
Yeah,
business law. Okay.
yeah,
All right. Perfect. So basically small businesses is what you're working with and
yeah.
helping. Okay. Sure. So what I would do is I would go to,
Actually, family-owned businesses, like more specific.
okay, perfect.
Okay.
So what I would do if I were you is I would go to an Instagram account because most cities and towns, they have magazines for the city, and they also have, obviously newspapers as well. And I would go to their Instagram accounts and look at who they are following because a lot of times they follow their advertisers.
Okay.
So they already have budgets, they already have, whatever they're able to pay for legal services, they're able to pay for whatever. So go ahead and, you start following all those and reach out to them and say, hey, like I wasn't sure if you knew about this particular business service or legal service. Like here's something you need to think about to protect your business further. Send them a nice little ebook or a nice little white paper on it and let them talk to you from there.
Brilliant. That was the best answer I've heard from anybody. I do a
Oh,
lot of
thank
marketing
you.
to people. Yeah, I mean, I never really thought about that. There are a lot of magazines, online, offline, that deal with
Yeah,
all the different communities, and
right.
yeah, so you follow the advertisers because you know that their businesses
Right.
in
You
the
know their
communities.
businesses, you know that they're spending money on their businesses because if they're being followed by those, newspapers, magazines, and the same, I mean, you could look in the magazines as well, but it's just way easier because if they're already following their advertisers, like, you have a
Yeah, you have the
nice
whole
little
list
prospect list built for you.
and the
Yep,
connection too. You don't have to go find them and stuff like that.
exactly, exactly. So that's all you gotta do.
Okay, so what else? We got good stuff. I want to get some more good stuff from people.
Let
Got
me
here, real
think.
guru.
Well, let me ask you this. What are some like big like marketing PR challenges that you have with your business? Because I mean, if you're having them, other people are having them.
Um, Definitely message.
Okay,
I have two sides of my website. So I have one side that is like a do-it-yourself type of a thing. It's
cool.
not completely do-it-yourself, but it's like if you're a young couple, right, and you're just starting out and you have a little baby, you're not going to go spend 6 months with a lawyer and do all kinds of fancy trust planning, right?
Right.
But you need to have a will.
Right.
So I designed the site. I built it so you can go prepay for like half of what I normally charge, because I'll do these all day long. It takes me no time. And then it merges them with my documents, the documents that I've created over the years,
Awesome.
sends them to me. I clean them up. They get them back with signing instructions. Boom, 48 hours, 72 hours,
Done.
whatever.
Amazing.
That's right. That's that's do things yourself or something like that. You can
Mhm.
look at the heading. I forget what it says. And then the other one is more custom stuff, complicated tax planning. They have a family-owned business, so there's children in the business, and the mom owns the building, and the dad's still on the deed, but he died 27 years ago, and the brother's still in the business, but he doesn't really do much, and the other brother kind of wants to buy him out. All those types of things. You can't do those automatically on a website.
Right.
So those usually
Those
are
are
monthly
messy.
retainers. Like, I charge them $1,500, $2,500 a month. They get a discount on everything else. And I have an online vault where they keep all their documents, because they always lose everything.
Yep.
Getting it to me is always difficult. So now it's all in one place. And then we do annual reviews, and we keep them on like in line, so they never have the problems. And then I even know like tax planning things they could do they don't even know about. So
Yeah.
that's probably the other side of the business, those
Okay.
two sides.
And so the messaging of it, like what is your biggest hurdle when it comes to messaging? What do you feel?
I think the complexity of it. Like, I don't think that I think I've gotten better on the do it yourself side. Like, I don't use the word dumbing it down, simplifying that type of a message. I'm sure it's not perfect, but it's gotten better. I think on the, we'll do it for you type of custom type of work, I don't think it's hard to get out of your own, profession
Yeah.
and say, well, how do I explain this simply to a 4-year-old
Right.
when, and there's plenty of businesses I talk to you about, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure you could use all kinds of marketing terms with me. I wouldn't know what you're talking about. I'd be like,
Right.
Michelle, back up for a second. What does that mean? Oh, that means this. Yeah. And I think I'm better than most attorneys, but definitely that's a problem, because how do you, get your message out there if you think that people don't understand what you're saying?
Yeah. So, let's say that on your website then, because let's say you're sending them there because, you've done the prospecting that we just talked about, you're sending
Right.
them to that side of the website. So, with something like that, where it's like kind of like the tax planning, the family business, like how do we make sure everybody's contractually protected? How do we go through all the jumbled up stuff? So then think about what their pain points are. So, what are they feeling when they need your services or right before they need your services? Are they feeling angry at their family members? Are they feeling frustrated? Are they feeling vulnerable, unprotected? Like maybe, this is their family, this is who's supposed to be protecting them most in the world. And, for whatever reason, things they're having falling outs, or they're not happy with the workload sharing amount, whatever. That's how they're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Then you
Probably
get
true.
like at the point where like, okay, how can I like let me put myself in their shoes for a second? How are they feeling? What would I need to hear in that moment? What would I need to see on a website to help me know that not only is this fixable, but that this is the person that can really guide me through this process? And
Okay.
then and so if you start to write that out and just start to write out like, okay, well, so if they're feeling vulnerable, if they're feeling like their family's not there for them, if they're feeling all those things, but they need their family to be on board working with you, obviously, because it's a family-owned business and they all have ownership stakes.
Right.
Then, let's say, okay, maybe we have, well, let me ask you this. When they decide to work with you or they're thinking about working with you, does everybody come meet with you in person? How does it work?
It varies. It depends on the point at which I'm coming in. If the brother is the president of the company, he's probably the one who's bringing me in and saying, okay, introducing me. If it's the parents still running the business, it may be the children that are bringing me in because the parents are still running the business. I don't know if there's a consistent point
Okay.
where I enter the picture
Okay. And are you doing
because of
like
the pain. It depends on what the pain point is.
right. Are you
Yeah.
doing any kind of, mediation with it? Are you doing any kind of, like ho
How do it normally happens?
yeah,
Usually it doesn't come from that. Sometimes it does, but usually it's more like, okay, well, let me see what you have. Like, let me see your corporate documents. Let me see your estate documents. Let me see how the structure of the business, what's the corporate governance?
Mhm.
and then they
Now
can't
you're getting in
find
the
half
weeds.
of it and they
I mean,
freak out.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but now you're getting in the weeds. So like
Yeah, right.
you're
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
into
yeah.
your stuff because of course, like that's of course makes total sense. That's how it goes. But for them, okay, so you say on your website something like, hey, if you're having, this issue in terms of like, the family allocation of the company, or if you're having this in terms of, whatever. But you start listing that down and you ask this, maybe you ask the questions on the website, be like, hey, are you facing this? Are you facing this? Are you facing this? Um, you know, we offer solutions for all of that so everybody feels protected. Everyone's family relationships can remain stable and repaired and good. So we'll take all that legality issues out of the way so you don't have to worry about it anymore. If you want to just chat about it, here's how you schedule a call. Like something like that, because it hits
Yeah,
their pain points and there's no jargon. Nobody
right.
cares. Nobody cares about the jargon. They just know they have a problem and they want it to be fixed and they want the pain point that they're feeling to go away.
Yeah, they don't even know how to fix it.
Yeah.
All right, so I got to make a list of questions then that are simple, and then
That hit and write them from that place that I talked about, like of what they're feeling in that moment. And so write them from that place. If you can actually feel it inside you, then you're able to actually write it out. And it's more intuitive that way. And then
sounds
you'll
like
know.
a podcast that ends up in homework for Mitch. Good homework though. It's good homework.
Yeah.
Gonna figure it out. Yeah, that's definitely an issue because usually what happens is you start working with a family business or a partnered business because you were brought there for some sort of a pain point, or they're selling a division, or they're bringing a new person in. And then as you're going through, as you ask them questions, they can't like answer the questions, or they can't find the stuff you're looking for. And then they start to freak out. And you're like, wait a second, we got to figure out what this is and why it's like this. And, I'm talking to old lawyers from 20 years ago and they don't even know.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah.
just saying something on it, like as a heading of just like, family owned businesses can be complicated, and then start going into those questions. Are you facing this? Are you facing this? Because again, this is a very, very common thing that you're talking about where people get really, my brother and I, he has a pretty decent sized brand as well. And we were just talking about that. We are talking about, doing a little bit of a project together, and we are so close. We've never fought in our lives. And literally within like 30 minutes,
They're like all over
we
each
were
other.
arguing and we're like, all right, so let's not.
Really? That killed it, huh?
Yeah. We're not right now. Maybe when we're older.
Right, exactly.
So I think it's just a very common thing. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, working with family, it's so challenging. Like people will rant about it all day long. So I think just really tapping into that emotion and tapping into that feeling will help people a lot, and seek out your services. So
Okay, good. Do you have another like case study we could talk about? A sample of no, without giving away private information. I mean,
sure. Like another like
like a
messaging.
business, yeah, like a business that you worked on that you remember that was, significantly, you looked at them, you're like, oh my God, they're totally missing this. And then you turned them around.
Yeah. Let me think for a second.
Like, how did one of the earlier ones work out? Did they all become clients and you helped them all? The ones that responded.
Right. Ones that responded. Yeah. So 3 of them ended up becoming clients. Let me think. I'm trying to think of just a very
They still
accessible.
clients?
No, so what we do is we do increments for people. So we'll have like a 3 month, like all the phases are typically about a 3 month phase. And that was a big thing for me too. I didn't want people to feel like they were forever relying on us unless they really, really need us. If we do our job right, a lot of the systems are in place and it's very easy
Oh,
for them
yeah. Right.
to keep going, except for the sales side. So yeah, let me think. We'll pick a real estate one. I've worked with a lot of real estate agents. It's just
Good.
super.
Perfect.
So it's another service business, but it's all good. But yeah, so with real estate, tapping into those feelings as well, and tapping into like I said, the questions that people are asking. People have a lot of questions when they're going into a home buying or selling process. They don't know what to do. They don't know when to do it. And so for a lot of real estate agents, the goal is to have that meeting and to, especially if it's selling a house, let's say, just to see, their home and to go through it with them and the pricing and everything else. So let's say, so basically just messaging. Oh my God. Okay.
Is
Realtors
that
have
why you were so successful, you think? Because you were
a lot of it was
messaging it better
messaging.
than other people?
Yeah, a lot of it was messaging. A lot of it was that empathy pain point thing, and I would do it with throughout the presentation as well. I would also charge way higher commission amounts than a lot of agents did as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. And so, but with realtors have some of the worst marketing on the planet.
I know. And it's a very competitive business.
It is. It blows my mind. It's so terrible. And so they'll do things all of the time. Oh my gosh, it just drives me crazy. They'll do things that make like the jargon is really big for them. They'll say like, oh, there's a 3 month supply of houses on the market. Nobody knows what that means.
Right.
And how is it relevant to them? It's not. Nobody cares. They market to themselves more than almost any other industry. So instead, tapping into, okay, what is somebody feeling when they need to sell their home? Especially right now. Let's talk about it right now with COVID and everything else. What are
Yeah.
they feeling when they sell their home? How are they gonna feel safe? They want to know that you're gonna get the highest price for them possible, of course, but they also want to know that if they're having a bunch of people traipsing through their house, like how do we stay safe? How do we implement the
Right.
safety protocols? So, and this is just good for anything right now so with COVID. So really just putting on the website or your marketing or whatever, and just talking about, hey, did you know that, this is something that we're implementing, like every home now will have hand sanitizer and booties at the door, and they'll have, everybody will be required to wear a mask throughout the house. Everybody, there'll be a no touching policy of things. We will be having a big conversation with every realtor that enters your house ahead of time when they're showing their clients what the protocol needs to be. So going through all of that and alleviating those concerns, and so people don't feel like they have to wait to sell their house until they feel safer, they can go
Right.
ahead and do it now. So that would be a really good messaging and marketing thing. So tapping into that pain point of the safety, and but also still getting their goals and dreams accomplished. Like their life does not have to slow down because of COVID, giving them
I,
a sense of control.
I think your background is really what has really made you as good as you are, because I think that the political arena, like having to, be so succinct with a message and make sure that all the people that are voting understand it, right? I think that really,
A
because I
short
think that's
period of
what's
time.
missing in a lot of marketing that I see. And, look, there's people out there, good digital marketers, and I have a lot of friends that are good digital marketers, and they can build a great profile and they can do that. The copywriting definitely is an issue, right? That's your message.
Copywriting and the sales. How do we actually create? Because there's a lot of fluff marketing, and
Yeah.
so we
You get
don't
all
care
these
about.
people in the door and they don't do anything with them.
Right. So like, but we want to know that, okay, you're getting the lead gens. We want the leads in, because a lot of marketing on social media does no lead. I mean,
Just
you don't get any lead.
promotes you. Like people know about you.
Who cares? Honestly, I don't care. If I can't track
Right.
it, if I don't see that it's a tangible result, if I don't know how that's going to translate into sales and give me a nice, beautiful conversion ratio, I do not care. I do
Right.
not. I
You're
don't do
wasting your time.
Everybody's wasting their time and their money,
Right.
especially small businesses who don't have massive budgets anyway.
Not even close.
We do not need that.
Right.
So, how do we focus in on the messaging to address the pain points to help people know that we care, we're there for them, and then how do we focus then on the lead gen and the actual closing the deal? That's
Right.
really
And
all.
depending on the profession, depends on how, and the business depends on how long your cycle is. Right. So
Correct.
a professional may be harder and longer. If you're selling, packs of gum, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you sell a stick of gum, it'd probably be fine.
Right.
You don't need that much emotional thing. I think that there's a lot of small business owners that are in the services business. They're business coaches or they're the accountants, attorneys, they all fall in that. But I think right? Don't a lot of small business owners, it's a service that they provide. It's not usually
Yeah.
a product, right?
Right. Correct.
Less barriers to entry and stuff.
Right. Less barriers to entry, higher margins. I mean, if I'm going to pick a business to start, I would always recommend starting a service-based business. You're just going to have more chance of success long term, anyways. But again, even no matter what, it's all about, you're selling a feeling. You're selling like, again, just remembering that simple point. If you're just remember that you're selling a feeling, you're not selling your product, you're not selling your service. Nobody cares about what you do. They care about the pain that you're
Right.
alleviating or the solution and feeling of positivity that you're providing. That is it. They do not care about anything else. And if you can really get that in your brain, then everything becomes a lot easier.
Have you worked with any of these people that are doing like these network marketing companies?
I have worked with some network marketing companies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have the company or you have the
I
people that
have
are
like
in?
the smaller ones. They have a lot of underlying people that signed on with them to sell as well. But yeah, that I
But
just
you're helping them with the message on the top, not necessarily dealing with the reps themselves.
right. So helping with the messages, helping with, how do we all the stuff, all the branding. The MLM is definitely complicated. And the addition with MLM as well is there's a lot more regulation, and so you have to be very careful. So,
Right. Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
funny.
Facebook
You go
ads
to
aren't
these
even allowing
groups.
MLM.
Oh
Go ahead.
yeah. Some
Yeah.
of them aren't. Yeah. Certain industries you can't even, but,
Yeah.
I go to these events. Well, you don't go anymore. Now you Zoom in and, there's a lot of people in network marketing companies, and it's not a bad way to start with things to get involved in businesses, low overhead, low entry point, as long as you believe in whatever it is they're doing, I guess.
Yeah. Uh, I have a friend that's pretty far up in some MLM companies with consulting with them. And one thing that he talks about too is, the importance of longevity. There's a lot of MLM companies that start up and, they're not going to survive very long. And I think the other thing too is just to really think um, with any company like that, you as a rep, if you're doing it as a rep, how, I mean, the survival rate, I looked it up, for someone as a rep, I mean, to actually make like a full-time income,
Got to
I
be
think it
very
was
low, right?
like 1 out of 2,000 people, something like
Yeah,
that.
very low.
Very,
And a
very,
lot of people just, they mean well. They
yeah,
sign up, they
of
buy
course.
6 products, they tell their friend about it, and they stop.
Right, exactly. So it's really, I sat down with just kind of just a college student starting out. She was like, "Oh, I signed up to work with this one MLM," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And she's like, "Yeah, I mean, I know you do this stuff, and like we are just having coffee." And she's like, "Would you like mentor me and show me like how to like how a little business plan works?" And I showed her. I was like, "Well, how much do you want to make off of this?" And I showed her. I was like, "You're gonna need to sell 600 of this product a month to hit your goals."
Sounds like a
And-
lot.
right, and that's my whole point. And she was like, "Oh my god," and she quit.
Yeah,
There's like you can do so much more and you can make, and so it's all about like where can you maximize your time, where can you maximize your money, where can you maximize and really make profits. And so I would encourage anybody like, okay, well, how much of that money, are you actually keeping? Because some of that stuff gets so convoluted, and also
right.
you, oh, I'm making nothing off of what I'm putting in. So
Yeah. It's like franchises, right? You got to research the franchise or in the product. And I think a lot of people open like stores and then they're like, oh my God, I only make 20,000 a year running this. I need like 7 of them to make any money.
right,
And then it's a
exactly,
problem. They didn't want to do that,
exactly.
you know? Yeah.
Not good.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, spending some time with me, especially without even knowing me. And I reached out to you and you said you would be willing to talk to me. But I think that, people should not only listen to what you have to say, but definitely connect with you. So the best way to connect with you is on Instagram or LinkedIn
Yeah, I
or
would love it. If people went to my Instagram, it's at the blonde fixer, TheBlondeFixer.
okay. We'll put it in the show notes too, so they don't have to write it down while
Perfect.
they're driving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mm,
now this video will also go up on YouTube. So we just put up the raw video and then we can connect
perfect.
to it and stuff. But I thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate all your time and your advice for me and for all the people listening. And I think this was one of the most concrete episodes that I've had in terms of like advice for people and things they could really do now. I'm not going to criticize all my other guests, but I think
Yeah,
that you left people with something like, hey, I can actually get off this podcast and go do something now. So I can't thank you enough.
perfect. Yay. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.